No, she didn't get involved with very many outside endeavors. She was a relatively private person, other than going to church there at St. Michael's. That was about the extent of her outside involvement. And that was church on Sunday, and it was every Sunday, too. She was a very regular attendee of St. Michael's.
Well, I sure am amazed to hear all this background from Detroit. That's amazing. Just amazing. Any other little stories you can think of?
Probably thousands of them if they came to mind.
Yeah.
But,
Are you gonna label these pictures for us?
If they're not labeled, it's pretty hard to, some of them are. If you'll see, now these I think are, these are copies, I believe. I think there's more, but here, now this is very cute.
Miss Marguerite Mary Gahagan, former name is Mary. In Travis Spelling, B, editor of the Detroit News, presents Southern Exposure as she takes off on her first airplane flight, accompanying the spelling champion to Washington. It's a picture of her behind as she gets into an airplane, says the Detroit News on it.
Okay, and then she wrote something, that's Marguerite's handwriting on the
Oh,
back.
Glenn Gahagan. For
She
Washington.
evidently thought that looked like she had a very big derriere.
Yeah, isn't that cute, 1940. She's standing on the wing of the plane getting in. Isn't that
There's a
something?
picture of I think this is maybe part of the spelling bee thing, yeah.
it is.
1940.
Yep, the
They're in
bee
front
it
of a-
says on it.
They're in front of a radio microphone.
Mhm.
And the boy has knickers on, the child.
Oh, I found a
What's
really
name,
neat
13?
picture when I was looking through this stuff to see if it would jog my memory any. Oh, she wrote a book too.
Oh,
And
tell
this
us about
is the
that,
book.
Penny.
This is the book. It was published. I don't know how many copies were published. This, I think, this Vienna, that's up there by Douglas Lake. This is where Marguerite is buried, is up in the
Oh.
Vienna Cemetery.
Vienna is where?
And it's it's hard to find. It was up by, between Gaylord and the Pigeon River and some of that area in there. You'll have to look at it, Carol. We went up there and, in fact, I've been back twice is all since she died, but it's a little cemetery, and there's probably maybe, not very many people buried in there, and old graves.
Are
But
her parents there?
her brother was buried there. I don't know that her
brother.
parents are buried there, but she was buried beside her brother up there. And there was one picture in here
Was
I
she
thought was,
cremated?
no, no. I don't think she probably would have believed in that. being
The
Catholic.
name of her book is Love Happens Along by Marguerite Gahagan, a first-run 30-chapter serial with 15 illustrations. Wow. I can't find a date on it.
Look at this. I thought this was really neat to have. And then read who it is.
Oh, right. Who
See,
is
that
that?
was probably when she was covering the society page, the Ford children.
Tell us who it is, Irene.
It's a very large picture in the Detroit Times of, the headline reads, "Two of Detroit's most prominent young equestrians are Billy and Josephine Ford, children of Mr. and Mrs. Edsel Ford, who enjoy brisk canters at the Grosse Point Riding Club." And then there's an article that underneath it. Oh, no. Doesn't look like that's related.
This one is, this was with that. It's a Ford, and I'm not sure which Ford it is.
So you think she hobnobbed with these people?
No,
or-
I think she was probably covering the
Okay,
social.
Yeah.
That's when she worked for the
Huh.
social part of the Detroit.
Oh, that'd be a
Yeah.
picture that I would have loved to take. It's,
Yeah.
Henry Ford with sort of looking chagrined at a Keno table. And the kicker is auto magnate playing Keno at the Colony Club's feather party. Ford concentrates on his cards but loses slab of bacon.
Do you think she did all the illustrations in this book? It doesn't say there's an illustrator, so it must be her.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Oh.
Marguerite gave me a copy of this.
Oh, I see.
That's
It's-
the book.
This is the
Hardcover
hardcover of
This
Love
is
Happens
the
Along.
hardcover.
Okay, let's see if there's a date in there. Nineteen 39.
You can
So
write that
she
on
was
there if you
young,
want to.
Right.
Look at that.
Copyright 1939. Well, for
I'm gonna be
heaven's
looking for
sake.
copies of those, I can see.
Uh-huh.
I say I'm gonna be looking for copies of those.
Get on
when
your
I
little
Oh, you
eBay.
bet.
Get on your eBay and you'll find it. That's great.
Here's something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that was just in the back. That Ford I thought was quite
That is amazing.
amazing.
Yes, it is.
Did we put that back in here? I think I'll put that back in the back of this.
This?
No, this picture of the Fords, let's put it, because that's where, you know, it's been there for a long time.
Now, what is that you have in your hand, that black? Oh, that's
That's that
the
Limericks thing.
Limerick Letty book. That is
And these
wonderful.
pictures,
So she put that scrapbook together more than likely?
Must have, must have,
Probably.
I'm sure.
but
I'm sure
I
she did.
see in this book, here, it's more of the same, but I'm thinking this is how those pictures of Marguerite appeared in the paper. This must have been a really young Marguerite. It doesn't have I don't see a date on it, but, here's that was that thing from the track that, when he was honored. But see how these have all come apart? But I think these were probably how they appeared in the paper.
Yep.
Oh, sure.
Like this, they're all, but here she's playing the
Oh, that's
piano,
awesome.
and this one's golfing and fishing and
With the
horse,
horse.
with the horse here. Fishing.
She worked for the Mirror in, when did these take place? Somewhere in the 30s. So she was probably in her mid-20s when that Limerick contest was taking place.
Yeah, here's the picture. That
Yep.
was taken from.
See, you
It's in
can
the back.
definitely tell.
Excuse me.
I'm sure it tells in that.
3-column layout, page 1.
I'll put that back where it goes there. The glue is kind of dried up.
Well, that was quite a deal, this Limerick Letty business.
They ran it for a
It must
number
have
of
gone
weeks.
on
It
quite a while, yeah.
Went on for a long time. So it must have been extremely popular because they
May 17th, 1931.
gave away quite a bit of money for that period of time.
1931, yes, 1931. That was right after the Depression, I think.
Mhm.
Here's her her fingerprints and everything
Oh, hey. In
from,
fact, we were still in the throes of the Depression, weren't we?
while
Sure.
covering the beat in
Yeah,
1940, she says.
Sure.
Yeah, well,
That-
me
there's a
too.
lot of-
Right.
Oh my, this is gonna be fun.
But I think some of these, that she wrote on the bottom of them.
In fact, my grandson said the other day, he's a freshman at Northern Michigan University.
I
And
don't-
he has a
some of
paper to
them-
write on
Maybe she
changing times in society, and he needed to interview somebody that was alive during World War II.
And he called you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But you don't remember much of that, you were just a kid.
I
She
don't
writes
remember.
You weren't
on
even
these,
born.
and
I
that
was
was,
born in
and this is
41,
definitely
so-
her
Yeah,
handwriting.
okay.
Right at the,
That
right at the
she's
onset of
personally
World War
done.
II. but-
So it tells where they were taken at, I
As
guess, or
opposed to
what she
thinking with
was
authority,
doing
you
them for.
can figure out, so
But-
I sent him the information.
Basically, they stayed pretty good for just paper and,
Now, these are pictures that you'd like a copy of?
Yeah, I really would. If
Well,
you,
sure.
if you can copy those, I really would like to
Yeah,
have
it's
those
not a problem.
for our family, you know,
All these right here
kids
you're
hear
talking
us
about.
talking about Marguerite all the
Sure.
time. Our kids, of course, knew her,
Newer,
you
right.
know, but
That's
the other
Bonnie,
kids-
Joe, and Mark,
Yeah.
still.
Mhm.
Yeah, the original should stay with
Okay.
either the society or,
Well, we can share it with the
Yeah.
Gahagan Reserve, because I don't know what they have out there for display and archival.
Yeah.
yeah,
They
between
have
the two of
problems
you
with
can make
people
use of
breaking
it.
in out there still, I think.
Yeah, our one building is heated all year, and our museum, the original school, is not. We've not found that to be a problem with the papers so far,
Mhm.
but we are getting the acid-free Mylar for our archival items. You can't, all you can do is try to slow the progression of the deterioration.
Sure.
But, you make an effort. I'm sure more could be done.
And
More
this is
could be
the,
done.
that's the masthead from
Oh,
the
this is
Northwoods Call.
amazing.
And, the printer's masthead anyway.
That's beautiful. Okay, this is with the deer in the center and her, it's copper, isn't it? On a piece of wood? Is that-
Probably, it's,
Has to be copper.
I suspect it's copper
That is
maybe-
neat.
maybe brass, I'm not sure which, but,
Paul Barber can tell us how to
Sure.
take care of that.
oh yes.
Yeah, he'll help us with that, I'm sure. That is neat.
And that, of course, was one of her paperweights that she used on her desk.
That's just awesome. Gosh, it must weigh how much? 246. That's really neat. Could you lift
Mhm.
that? That is neat.
And those are from a variety of awards that she got from Keep Michigan Beautiful and Soil Conservation District, Gary Shigan School District.
You wanted to take all those?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, we might as well. That's,
I didn't bring a receipt with me.
There's a
that's all
lot
right,
of,
you can
peop-
send me one.
I will.
um,
It's gonna take you a while to inventory everything, so good to go through it and just inventory what's there.
No, we can do that. That's what we spend our winters doing.
it's too bad that you didn't get an opportunity to interview Winnie Matheson, because she probably could have really told you some stories.
Well, we can try.
Uh-huh,
I'm not sure what the situation is there.
uh-huh. I was surprised that she's not too much different in age than Marguerite was. I mean,
Oh, she's in
that
her
wasn't,
90s,
yeah,
I believe.
yeah. And I always thought.
Were they good friends?
Very much so, because of the, I think
From the
Winnie,
newspaper.
yeah, felt very close to her, And, Marguerite, so did them.
What was Daryl's wife's name?
I don't know. Polly,
Polly.
No, that was Ellen's.
Ellen's wife.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
Gerald was Winnie. It was Winnie
Oh,
and Daryl.
okay, it was Winnie and Daryl and Polly and Ellen.
In
All right.
fact, she kept in contact with, Ellen and Polly after they moved to, was it, Arizona?
Tom Bates did an oral history with Ellen, just maybe a year and a half or so before he died, that we have, this will be the 43rd, we have 42 oral histories.
Is that right?
Oh, wonderful.
What about the Rutledges?
We've
Did you
missed-
do anything with the
Just
Rutledge?
did Jim
Oh,
Rutledge this
only-
winter.
that's- What about
And
Stu
Blaine,
and-
I did
yeah,
Blaine. Blaine gave us a really good, that's the one, because his voice was so strong, I didn't use the microphone for this little thing. And we were in this small room, and it is the worst static in that tape that you could hardly stand to listen to it, but the content is so good. He just gave a wonderful history. So the written transcript is good,
Mhm.
but it's hard to keep up with all that.
Oh, yes,
But we're-
absolutely.
We're working on it.
So you talked about, what is her name? Frances.
DeHunt.
Were there other close friends like that you
That's
could
the
think of?
only, well, that Rogers, that did that newspaper up in the UP, was that Rogers? What was that guy's, maybe I'm not right with that, maybe it wasn't Rogers. There was somebody that wrote a article up for, was it one of the colleges?
It was
And
at Lake Superior State, and I'm not sure.
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
his name was Roger something, and I
Maybe.
don't remember. I think Roger was his first name.
But she used to write, he would get a hold of her and she would do another article for him for up there.
You mean after she
Well,
had,
after she was older and lived, you know, she
was no longer doing the
Yes.
breakfast call?
I mean, she got to the point where it was hard for her to
Did she
put
type,
it together.
did she dictate anything, or did she always type?
She typed
writer?
on, in fact, there's a picture of an old typewriter in one of these pictures, and I wondered if it was still the one she had at the cabin. That typewriter had to be 100 years old.
Yeah.
But that's what she did all of her typing on.
Mhm.
And that probably was, you know, that was probably one of the things that went in the auction
Well,
too.
tell me about the, you're referring to an auction, tell us about the auction.
Well, after Marguerite died, we, you know, everything just kind of got left, like, you know, when she was there. Of course, she was in the nursing home. I guess we did it prior to the time, you know, I'm not positive about the dates with that, Carol, but what was happening is there were people
Because her cabin
that,
was empty the 4 years she was in the
Yeah.
nursing home.
and
wasn't rented to
people were
anybody,
breaking
right.
windows and, you know, anything that was for history or valuable or whatever was going to not be worth anything. And so what we did is we had it appraised, and then we took it to Kirtland, and they auctioned it off, and all of that went to Kirtland Community College. All
So,
the proceeds
the
from
money.
that,
So
all of
you're
the money
saying
went
all
to,
of her furnishings?
uh-huh,
Now, I know you donated her couch to the Historical Society,
Yeah.
because we have that in the front parlor at the
Uh-huh.
Delmar boarding house. But then like her clocks and all that stuff was
Mhm.
auctioned off.
yep. In fact, I don't know if they would still have, because they got the proceeds from it, if they would have a record of the stuff that was, you know, auctioned off or not.
So that was
I don't
probably in the late
remember a
nineties.
bill. I mean, there was some, did you buy anything from
No,
that auction?
no, I didn't go to it. I don't
Is
remember
that
it.
right?
Mm-mm.
Who was telling me? Somebody was just telling me, I'm not, we talked about this not, it hasn't been too long ago, that someone said they had bought something at that auction.
Maybe it was Diana?
Maybe.
She
Maybe
would have
it might have been her.
Okay.
It might have
To
been her.
ask her.
Yeah.
I think somebody donated that typewriter back. I think it's.
Did
up to
they?
the
I
Gahagan
hope
Center now.
so.
Is that right?
Because there's a picture, you'll see it when you go through this stuff, and I don't know, maybe with a magnifying glass, you could tell if it was the same one. It was an old typewriter, and she typed like this.
Really?
One
Front
finger
and
at a
back.
time? No kidding.
That's surprising.
For a journalist, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was because, you know,
She had
she had
arthritis.
some arthritis, and so maybe, you know, in later years, that's what she did. But who knows? Dave's dad was a writer, he typed with one finger.
Two.
Two fingers, one on each hand.
So back to this, what were, did
And he
you
was
get your
quite
question
fast,
answered
too.
about that?
This is,
We're just-
yeah,
yeah, we're just
Frances
asking.
DeHaan. She worked for the newspaper too, down in the Detroit area. And I'm sure that's where they became friends, you know. But,
But
I've met her,
Yeah,
you
she would
know.
come up periodically and stay with Marguerite for a few days, and then go back downstate where she lived. And so she was not a frequent visitor, but would come maybe a couple times a year and stay with Marguerite, and they would
I really don't know that.
talk about
you
old
know.
times and everything, and then.
I know that there was a problem, you know, and I just am not, you know, since I have no knowledge of what really happened, I just know they were friends for a lot of years.
And she, and the article you're referring to.
I think it's in this one, isn't
Yeah,
it,
it's
or
in
is
the
it, it's in the way
Next to the
back?
last
She
page.
tells,
What happened to Marguerite?
she tells about.
And that's another thing, when you write about her, she didn't like being called Maggie, not at all.
Really?
Yeah, and I see they referred to her, he didn't know her very well if he called her Maggie.
And
There's-
this article that DeHaan wrote
Mhm.
is about, is what? What is it saying?
It's the magazine of the Michigan Newspaper Guilds,
Mhm.
Newspaper
Mhm.
Guild of Detroit, in which Marguerite would have been very active.
And I'm sure that's what Francis was active in too, and that's probably how they become such good friends.
No, she took exception to being called Maggie. Her name was Marguerite. She preferred to be called Marguerite.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, and
Must have gotten that from the
I'm
nuns.
glad I remembered
Mm,
that.
I don't doubt that a bit.
She does not get phone calls. Isn't that something? There's no phones up at Douglas Lake where she's writing. Drives miles to get a story. Oh, this is interesting. If the folks are not home, she leaves a self-addressed envelope for them to set the time of an interview with her. That's great. She worked hard, didn't she?
Oh, yes. Put a lot of hours in,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of hours. But that was her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
The newspaper was everything to her. 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
Never had any family to speak of.
Did she like to cook?
Nope.
No.
Her little
No.
toaster oven was probably one of the big
Her
features,
lifeline, huh?
the big features of her kitchen.
Oh.
She might have concocted something for the birds. She might have done something with suet and seeds, but she really didn't. And she, no wonder she stayed the size she was, because she ate like 3 times a day, whatever little thing it was, and there was nothing that she didn't snack. She just, she ate, and I think she did that just to keep going.
Mhm.
I don't think that was a big part of her thought for the day, like it is mine. I mean,
Like most newspaper people, she was a voracious reader.
I have to
She
do
read and read and read. She read, people would send, because she was in the outdoor writing field, they would send a lot of prototypes for books to her, and she would
Did
read
she
them.
have quite a library in her home?
Not really. She wasn't a saver. She wasn't a saver. She very seldom kept anything. Of course, it was a very modest sized cabin, and she didn't keep much around. There were a few antiques that meant a lot to her because they were either her family's antiques or she
There was a-
associated with something early on in her life. But
there
she was not a
a
material person. I mean, she didn't buy much of anything.
shillelagh that
Yeah, shillelagh.
we packed that up and sent it. In fact, there was some history of the family, and we sent that to one cousin.
Was that with East or something?
Yeah,
What-
What are you
It
talking
was
about?
Marguerite he was talking about things that she valued, and there was like a,
Like a walking stick, a shillelagh,
Oh, yeah, I didn't know what that
Irish
was.
walking stick.
and it was in the sheath, and she had made up her mind that it was time to part with that, and she very much wanted it to stay in the family, and she sent it to one of the Gahagans, and it was, I don't know if it was part of Neil's family, and I packed it up. I mean, I'm the one that sent it, so and then there was like a Bible, that's what it was. It was a Bible that had the dates of, like her
Family.
mother and dad and all of the family. And she sent them, she sent that stuff all at one time, so it could be kept and they would know what was going on for history
Mhm, Sure.
purposes, I guess.
Sure. Well, that
And
was-
don't ask us who we sent it to,
And
because
I
I have
don't
no
know,
idea.
and I don't, maybe I
But that
will.
was wise that she did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should all pay attention to that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh. She had an antique clock of some kind because she called Jim to come fix it.
Oh,
Oh, I remember that clock. I remember Jim. In fact, I think I'm the one that
You probably called Jim.
sicked her on Jim.
Yeah,
But,
that could be,
that probably went in the
Yeah.
auction also.
yeah, I don't remember. We must have missed the auction. We did, oh, I know we
Well, I
did, 'cause I
mean,
know I
yeah.
wasn't there, but.
Was the house for sale for a little while after her death?
No,
Was it-
well,
it
what
wasn't?
happened is, Marguerite very much wanted that house to remain the same, you know, I mean, she didn't want it, she was so worried about her little friends that, she never wanted that to be developed, and I think she probably saw Brookside being developed and didn't want that to happen there. And so she tried to give it to the University of Michigan, she tried to give it to Michigan State University, she tried to give it to the Writers Guild, she tried to give it to Central Michigan, and there wasn't enough property there.
She still
For
had 40
any-
acres?
Well, no, she only had 10 acres in the beginning.
Oh, I thought she started with 40.
There was
Oh.
only 10 acres there that the house was on. And, anyway, she couldn't get anybody to be interested in it because it was small. And besides, you know, to maintain it, the value wasn't there. And so, it went up for, what we finally decided to do, because she really bugged Dave. She wanted, you know, she wanted that taken care of before something happened to her, or while she could still take care
So
of
she
it.
was still living in it when this
Oh,
was
yeah,
occurred?
oh, yeah. And so she talked to Dave, and what they ended up deciding to do was to give it to the state of Michigan. And then, because Dave was positive the state would not keep it, because it was just a small piece of property, that if they decided to sell it, then the proceeds of the sale would go to Hartwick Pines, up there by Grayling, in fact, there's a cabin up there that's got her name on it, that she donated so they could build something at Hartwick Pines. And you can check on that. I'd forgotten about that one also. Anyway, that's how they set it up, and she was content with that it had been taken care of. So, we went to the first, when it came time for the state to do something, as far as they were gonna sell it, and then the proceeds would go to Hartway Pines. I went to the auction, and there was no bid on the property. There was no bid whatsoever on the property.
Where did you have to go for that?
They held it out at the regional office. They
Right there in
publicized it,
Roscommon.
and there was more than one auction going on at the same time. I think there was some property that was being for sale, 4 Mile up there where all that is built now. Anyway, they didn't get any bids on it. And it was their idea that they would put it up for a bid again. They wouldn't accept anything less than what it was appraised for. And it was the house and the property, I believe, was appraised, and I think Sherry Varner had something to do with that appraisal. Anyway, it was appraised for like $50,000. And, at this point, I mean, Marguerite had passed away. This was
Okay,
after
so
she
this
died.
is the late 90s.
Before they, you know, put it up for auction, Marguerite had passed away. But, anyway, we went to that auction, nothing happened. And they were gonna put it up for auction again, and before that happened, that's when, John Rozek and them got in to give it to Roscommon, it wasn't the Historical Society,
No.
it was
The
Metropolitan, yep, that's the one. And then it went from there to be what it is now. He got that to happen. They gave that, and then they got the property across the road that the state gave to them so that they could make it part of all of that Gahagan preserve.
How much is that? How much property is
It's either
that?
30 or 40 acres now. Yeah, they bought 10 off of John Rouse and Kisbeck.
So that made it
Oh,
20,
okay.
that made it 20, and then whatever they got from across the road. So that's how that
Great.
came about.
I remember hearing that story
Uh-huh.
when I came back and just kicking myself that I could have had that.
Yeah,
whole
well,
10
you know,
acres
there
for
was other
50,000,
people
yeah.
that had no idea that they could have bought that piece of property for that, you know, but there was not one person that put it, and it wasn't that they didn't advertise it, because when the state does things
yeah.
like that, they advertise it. But see, it was meant to be as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
Everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
And she would be so happy to have,
To see what it is
to
today.
see what it is today.
Mhm.
She really would. So, and a lot of her money has gone into that.
Oh, okay.
A lot
So,
of Marguerite's money.
since the state didn't have a seller, did they just
They
grant it?
deeded it, yeah.
Deeded it over to the Roscommon Metropolitan Authority?
Mhm.
Great.
And you
I
should be
didn't
able
know
to
how
find
all
that
went.
information right there locally.
Well, it's easier if someone just tells you.
Yeah, well, if you can be sure, you know, that you're getting the right story on the dates and stuff.
Right. Well, that's really something.
So after she sold the paper, is that pretty much the income she lived on, or the,
Yeah.
the money? Do you
Yeah.
know how much she
She,
sold that for?
no, I have, Dave might know that.
Because I think there was some haggling over that price, wasn't there?
Well, there was some haggling over the payment.
All right.
He didn't get, I don't know if he was
Subscriptions that went with it?
financially set to buy the paper, but I think she ended up hiring a lawyer to get her money.
I think there are some articles on that, reporting on that situation.
And I, you know, I don't know the details of that. But that's, Glenn Shepherd is the man that bought the property. I mean,
The
bought the
paper.
paper, yeah.
So the circulation of it is probably more towards that part of Michigan now than, I mean, I don't see it on the stands in Roscommon, do you? Is it there?
No.
I, it,
I don't think there's very much in the way of
Circulation.
on-stand sales. I think
It's
it's
all
all
subscriptions.
done through subscription.
Oh, okay.
Just renewed about
Good girl, Irene.
$30 a year.
Oh,
Yeah, probably.
upped a little bit.
Probably.
What, do you think we've covered everything fairly well? What,
Well, I think it covered
if we can
most
think
everything.
of anything or find anything else that you would be interested in, we'll contact you,
okay,
you know.
okay.
And I'll be bugging you over the course
Okay.
of the next couple of
That'll be
years.
fine.
Yeah, she said this is just her initial
Mhm.
contact. She's sure
This is
she'll be
wonderful.
bad.
Well, you got a lot of research material there.
Yes, which is just what I needed to prod me into this.
Sure. Well, it's been, we certainly appreciate your adding this to Roscommon. This is a big part of our history. Here we are in the middle of all that nature,
Yep.
you know, and conservation work and the whole 9 yards.
Well,
She
you'll-
was a big part of it.
You'll never find anybody that's more unique and more eclectic in her ways than
Mhm.
Marguerite. She was just she knew a little bit about everything and a lot about a lot of different things.
And knew
just-
how to bring it to the public.
Oh, absolutely, and she could communicate. That was the key. She was an excellent communicator.
Did you say she was a happy person?
Oh, I think she was a very happy and very content person. I don't think she felt like she missed out on anything in life. I mean, she was dedicated to her work. She was dedicated to her causes, and her religion was a very, very prominent part of her life. And family meant a lot to her. So I don't think she felt that she was missing out at all. She was very content.
Great. Anything else, Irene? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much, both of you, Penny and Dave. It's been very, very enlightening and very interesting, and we appreciate it.
We enjoyed having you.
And we'll go from here.
All right.